All right, I think we're live. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the NASCAR Weekly Podcast. The season's over, but the news isn't really over. So let's just get into it.
Green flag. I'll roll. He's flipping me off. Ah! Yeah, boys, how about that? They touched Busch in the wall. He threw it off the track. Baby, that's how you do it. Get that second flag, son. Yeah, baby, yeah. Hell yeah.
All right, how's it going, everybody? We are back again for our second to last episode of the season, surprisingly.
Season's over already.
I don't know,
Holy
it
crap.
came way too quick. Anyway, I'm joined here by my co-host, Black Flags Matter, and our special guest today, Hannah Newhouse. Hannah, say hello to the people.
Hello, yeah, thanks for having me. I told you guys, before we started, I'm going to try to jump on video here in a second, but I am eating a taco, and as people probably, I'm going to use some common courtesy and probably not eat a taco while I am live on the podcast. So I appreciate it. Thanks for bearing with me. I know it was my forgetfulness messed up the last time I was going to come on, but no, I'm excited to come on. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
it's all good.
Don't worry about
No,
it.
It's all good. It's Taco Tuesday. Oh wait, it's Wednesday. Never mind.
It's Taco
Not
Tuesday on a Wednesday.
Wednesday, basically.
Reminds me of a Walking Dead reference, but this is not a Walking Dead podcast. This is a NASCAR podcast. So I guess we'll just jump right into it. Darian, you can start off. What'd you think of Homestead, like both being there and the races themselves?
Well, first off, shout out to NASCAR for basically inviting us out there. Like, it was a blast, man. Just helping us get it sorted out with travel plans, and then also, hooking us up with the hot passes. It was a blast, dude. And just hanging out with you guys at the house too was awesome. And I'm not gonna say anything, but like Jared, it was just he was so funny, man. He was funny all weekend. Like, you had to be there to see it.
Yeah, don't get into it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get in. Yeah,
What happens at the house stays at the house.
It stays in the house, of course. But the weekend as a whole was crazy. So like Friday, it was just raining all day, and the truck race is gonna get in. It's not gonna get in. Then they took them forever to drive the track, but then it was worth it. The final four in the truck series were duking it out all race long. And one of the funniest championship seasons ever, Matt Crafton wins in a system that has that basically promotes like winning. You have a driver who wins the championship with 0 wins. So that's very odd. At the same time, though, we all know that there's flaws in the system. So I don't know. NASCAR eventually just has to look into the system more and just sort of implement certain rules and stuff to where maybe this doesn't happen again or as often. But I think Crafton's the first one to have 0 wins in this playoff format anyways, so hopefully this doesn't become a common trend. And it was also the first champion in NASCAR's history since Austin Dillon in 2013 in the, at the time, called Nationwide Series. That's when they had the consistent point system, so Austin Dillon beat out Sam Hornish by like 4 points. So yeah, so he definitely earned that. So yeah, congrats to Crafton. Also Xfinity though, Tame the Beast, baby. I mean, Tyler Reddick and Cole Custer. That was the best race all weekend. Maybe even the best race of the season, bar none, depending on who you ask. I mean, just how high, the way they were running the high line towards the end, and just everything was perfect in those final laps. They came off of pit road at the same time, and then they were running the high line at the same time. And then Reddick passes Custer, then Custer's trying to get him back. Custer hits the wall because he's running too high, can't run it high enough. And Tyler Reddick is the first back-to-back champion in the playoff era. Well, in this playoff format era. And with 2 different teams at that too. So Tyler Reddick came in with a huge chip on his shoulder and was able to pull it off. And then finally for the Cup Series, that race was you guys who follow me on Instagram, I just had like my hand over my face. Like that race at times, like I'm sorry, it was just too much at times. Like not enough passing really. Truex was out to a friggin' like 6-second lead there. And what made it interesting in the middle of the race was when Truex, his team put the wrong tires on. They're on the wrong sides. And then I'm shocked how fast he was able to identify it like that and was able to make the switch. Then Kyle Busch and Harvick duke it out for the lead there. Truex ended up winning stage 1, stage 2 to Kyle Busch. Then on the ensuing restart, him and Hamlin started duking it out. Kyle Busch was pretty much mistake free throughout the race. Truex wasn't, obviously. Harvick played the wrong strategy there, stayed out way too long on that final run. And then also, lastly, Denny Hamlin lost the championship because he put too much grill tape. Yeah, so in typical Denny Hamlin. Oh, someone's echoing. But no, in typical Denny Hamlin fashion, he doesn't win the championship because of something that's so stupid. I was like, I mean, I remember I was hearing it on like the scanner. I was like, really? You put too much tape? Like, what's going on with like these little petty mistakes in the final race of the season? But anyways, congrats to Kyle Busch, man. Yeah, you said it best. Congrats to Kyle Busch, man. What was crazy though is in his first championship, he had a winless drought, and the same for his second championship, and he had to win at Homestead to win those 2 championships. Finally gets some validation too for that first one, because a lot of people discredit that for I don't know why. I mean, NASCAR implemented the rules for him to compete, and under the circumstances, he did deserve that championship. I mean, he did win it. So yeah, he's still going to be a 2-time champion in my eyes. And then to some fans, he's like, oh, only 1 championship in my eyes. But doesn't really matter what we think in the end though, because the stats will always refer to him as the 2-time Cup Series champion now. So congratulations to Kyle Busch, man. And
really quick, thank you, Streamville, for the $2 super chat. Hannah, what did you think about the race? Or races?
I mean, I think you guys kind of hit the nail on the head there with, first off, I didn't pick any of the champions. So I clearly should not go to Las Vegas anytime soon and gamble. But no, I mean, the Xfinity race was hands down the best one of the weekend. They put on one hell of a show. The Cup race, I think as many people will agree, kind of like, I don't want to say it fell on its face, but it just like wasn't what anyone expected. But if you look at the grand scheme of what everyone's been talking about this season, it pretty much played up to par with like the package that we've had on mile and a half and how that's panned out. So, I think people hoped that the racetrack being Homestead would maybe mask that, and it didn't. So that falls in the hands of NASCAR next year to adjust that. But Xfinity race was incredible. I did not have Matt Crafton winning the truck championship, but I think it's a cool storyline. As someone who's obviously on the media side of things and the reporting side of things, gave a great storyline into the off season with, how he essentially beat, like you said, the, win and you're in system. He didn't win and he was still in and won. So, no, I mean, all in all, it was a lot of fun. We stayed down in Key Largo with MRN and stayed at a resort, which was also humorous because I think there was one time for about 15 minutes that I actually saw the resort in daylight because of how our out. So the thought was awesome. The execution of staying at a resort in Key Largo was not so much, but fun. It was my first Homestead actually working. I've been there once just hanging out with the race fan, but it was fun to be on the media side of it and get to work it as well.
Was it like super hectic compared to just being there as a fan then?
Yeah, so I went last year as a fan and got to like hang out, and I camped actually. And so that was fun because I literally just kind of woke up. Well, essentially I was woken up by the race cars when it was the racetrack. But yeah, it was slightly more hectic. Usually, I mean, as you guys know, I work with Motor Racing Network and I'm on the radio aspect of it. And that tends to get a little hectic. But I actually worked with ISM vision screens. So I did the big TV boards all throughout the racetrack over the weekend, and that was actually more chaotic because we do a bunch of like pre-recorded screen stuff and got in the campground and hang out with people and go hang out with like kids at the racetrack and record stuff, and so we're busy all day long plus pre-race and plus throughout the race. So it was super busy, but like what a cool experience to be a part of, to be like, we're pretty much a fan on TV, like in the boat in Victory Lane and was doing stuff, and I went to the campground and was hanging out with campers, and that's something that like we don't get to do on the radio side of things. So I essentially got to be a fan, but got to do it with a camera and a microphone. So it was a really cool experience.
Anyway, yeah, I think I only got one of the championship ones correct. Because actually,
I got Reddick. Yeah, I got one.
Funny enough, none of us that were on last week, we had 5 different people predict the championship, and nobody predicted Kyle Busch.
Yeah,
at all.
I know. Looking back now, it was mostly Hamlin, and now looking back, it's a very foolish pick now because Yeah, that team didn't come in clutch there. But I also got to meet Michael Waltrip this weekend too. He knows me. Like he knows about the whole 15.
Yeah, didn't you say his name like 15,000 times or something during a podcast?
I did.
A couple days ago.
Yeah, I did actually. And this was like way back in I want to say
It's right
September.
after Bristol.
Yeah, it was right after the Bristol trip. It was for Eric. It was for this dude's. His name is Eric Keplinger. He's a huge Michael Waltrip fanatic. Basically started the Michael Waltrip memes. And I'm like, you know what? What's a good birthday present? And then Jarrett was like, say his name like a bunch of times. So I'm like, okay, 1,500. And he's like, no, do 15,000. I'm like, all right, bet. So I did that. Took forever.
Yeah, I completely set him up for that. And afterwards, he's like, I never want to hear Michael Waltrip's name ever again.
But say Michael Waltrip again, like an hour later.
But going back to the races though, the truck race for the most part, I think honestly, I felt overall it was pretty good. Granted, I watched only from pit road, so that's all I about saw. But the champion. Oh, hey, camera's on.
Hello.
Hey.
I love.
Right.
The champion, that one made me laugh as the old Winston Cup fan. The Xfinity race, man, that was awesome. I was down there and in pit lane for the last 60 laps and up in the stands, and there was so much passing and just hold on. Oh yeah, but I did shave. But everyone keeps commenting that it's like the big thing.
Dude, I still can't get used to it. You shaved like the day before we left, and I was like, what?
Anyway, yeah, but the Xfinity race was definitely, I'd say, the best of the weekend. Tons of passing everywhere. Top 4 all running for the championship at the end. I'd say, honestly, this weekend showed the best and the worst of this package. Mm-hmm. I think there's like an audio glitch going on right now.
Yeah, I think someone's echoing. I don't know who that is, but yeah, as far as like the whole weekend goes, if I'm gonna rate the whole weekend, I'd probably give it I'd say, well, I mean, just being there, like, personally for me, it would be a 10 out of 10, just because, of all the things we saw and all the people we got to meet. And if you're, one of the fans who said hi to us this weekend, once again, thank you guys so much for watching this event. We appreciate that. But as far as the racing goes, I would have to give it the entire weekend as a whole, probably a 7, just because the Cup Series race really, again, like didn't really live up to all the hype. I mean, it being the championship floor really didn't live all up to the hype of it. And Xfinity definitely came through this weekend. Xfinity is what saved this weekend's racing, and trucks was like so-so.
No, yeah, I'd say about the same. The trucks were kind of in the middle, but closer to good. Probably a lot closer to good. Xfinity was awesome. Probably one of the best races I think I've ever been to in person, objectively. And Cup, Cup was like disappointing, I guess people could say, because there wasn't like a big fight at the end for the win. But at the same time, there was a ton back and forth. So I don't know, man. I'm not going to rip on it too much because I kind of expected it going in. I noticed a lot during the Cup race, and Radman noticed this too, is they could not follow very close behind each other going into the corner. But we kind of knew that.
A lot of people were also saying like, oh, just wait until it's nighttime. Like, Homestead is not Kansas, y'all. Like, it's laid out much differently. Like, you have to get out of the throttle, like no matter what, whether it's day or night at Homestead with this package. It's not like Kansas. It's not like Vegas where you can just sort of hold it wide open with this package and see it through. But no, you have to get out. You have to have some off throttle time at this racetrack, no matter what.
I guess really quick, we can kind of go into this a little bit, even though it's not the greatest news. The TV ratings came out this past week.
Oh, God.
Man, this surprised me.
Dude.
It dropped, the rating dropped from a 2.5 to a 2.2, and the viewership went from a 4.1 to 3.7. Which means, like, I guess it's not the end of the world, because at the end of the day, Darian, didn't you say that the ratings overall still were flat with last year?
They still flatline, though. They still flatline, so it's good. It's at least good. It didn't go down more.
Which I think it's funny that we're kind of like disappointed and shocked by this, because at the start of the season we're like, if it flatlines, it's the best thing ever. But it's like, it really, other than these last 3 weeks, it's been a lot higher. I guess I'll pass this to you guys. Like, what do you think caused like the end of the year just to sort of fizzle out, I guess?
Go ahead, Hannah.
Well, I was gonna say, so something that like we actually talked about recently in like one of our meetings was think about just even in the last year, they take those TV ratings specifically from cable networks and the viewership there. I don't know about you guys, I have not had a cable subscription in about 5 years, and I watch every race. So like you can't count my viewership. And so, I mean, that's just kind of one of those things that with the concept of like streaming and people that watch it, like we now have playback where people can record it and watch it the next day or watch it later. Like, honestly, I think TV ratings are a horrible way to, be able to gauge the volume of people that watched because it's not accurate. I mean, NASCAR.com offers streaming stuff where people are watching it. That doesn't go into the viewership. You don't count, people that log in via if they have, the cable thing and they get on NBC.com or whatever and they can log in. That doesn't go towards TV viewership. So I think it's kind of one of those things that, like, to honestly say they flatlined with it this year with more and more people getting rid of cable, I think that means our viewership is up because they don't take into account all of that stuff. And that's kind of how it is. Like, that's how we view it on radio, too, is less and less people have, like, Sirius subscription. So they're like, oh, the viewership's down. Okay, but people can view it in so many different facets now outside of just the one that we're gauging. But, I mean, to just circle it back to that just defining race being Homestead, Gluck did his tweet of was Homestead a good race? And, like, people said no. Yeah. People vote on that based who wins. And Kyle Busch won.
Yeah, mostly,
so people voted on it saying no because Kyle Busch won. Was it a good race? Nah, it was okay. But it sure as hell wasn't the second worst race of the season. But people voted that because Kyle Busch won.
Yeah. Fans are going to be a little biased towards that, no matter what. But
and you'll like later. We got a poll that's a little more elaborate honest. With our answers.
A little more honest.
Yeah. Like we give 5 options instead of 2, so it generally filters a lot better.
Gotcha.
But I kind of agree with that. With the way that people have been cutting the cable and stuff and. Flatlining means viewership has probably went up because like honestly the first 33 races of the year so far the viewership had been up I think like what was it Darian like 5 to 8%.
Just like somewhere around that teeny tiny area.
And I was funny I was talking with my mom about this past week and like people I was saying how people my age especially like if we are living so for instance like I'm a big Viking fan, and I live in Illinois. So, like, most of the Viking games, I don't get to see. But I watch every Viking game because I find it. People will find ways to watch it now without having to pay the needless money.
Sunday ticket. NFL Sunday ticket for me.
I think you pay. Don't you pay for that?
Yeah, I pay for it.
See, I don't pay. I don't want. I'm too lazy to pay.
Yeah. I don't know how you find these games, but go ahead.
I don't either. Anyway, but honestly. It's like, people are going to find them no matter what. So what NASCAR, I think, needs to do and what they're doing with this new streaming service that have been coming out is focus more on that aspect of it. Because whether they like it or not, it is the future. Like, that's just the way we're going. TV is going the way of the radio right now. And the internet is going to be the number one source of, I think it already has become the number one source for a majority of people of the content they view. I guess it's just... It was surprising seeing the ratings go down these last 3 weeks especially after the Kansas race jumped up like 30%. I guess that's the big thing there. But, the fact that people are freaking out over flatlining after, I think 8 of the last 9 years being downwards, I think is a good sign.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 8 out of the past 9 years. I mean, it's just been down on the downward trend. Like, flatlining is no big deal. It's still a W, I'd say. And I don't know. It also doesn't help that the last 2 races weren't the best, and that's just putting it lightly, or just weren't as good as some of the others. That just has a lot to do with the package, and also like Hannah just pointed out, who won too, and like who was leading the whole time. I mean, during like the the Phoenix race, I mean, that's another dog
Sorry,
we've had on the podcast. Yeah, no, Dalen was on here and his dog was barking too in the middle of the podcast. So it's like the second dog this year. But anyways,
if I yelled Janet and like take off after her, it's my dog, so I apologize.
Oh, it's all good.
It's all good.
Literally last week before and during the show, we had a conversation about dogs. Like just during it. So
during it.
Dogs are welcome.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're not a huge Denny Hamlin fan, then obviously you are not going to like him seeing him win by like 10 seconds or leading by 10 seconds for most of the race. And if you're not a Kyle Busch fan, you're not going to like seeing him lead for like 4 or 5 seconds to go on and win the championship. So that I can understand. And like Hannah said, everyone streams. Like, I didn't watch every race on cable this year. Stream it on NASCAR.com, NBC.com, or Fox Sports Go. I really think though, like they should start including these numbers, just stop calling them TV ratings and just put all of the viewership together as one big pile. And it's like, here, this is what we got. So this percentage was on TV, this other percentage was streaming, and if somebody can, this other section was pirated, but like fine, it was streamed illegally. I don't know.
So yeah, they're not gonna report on pirating.
No, obviously, no, they're not gonna report that. But yeah, just put them all in one big pile. It'll look a lot better.
And I guess going into polling, Darren, you can pull up the poll real quick if you want to share screen there.
Yeah, hold on, just give me a second. We can share a screen. Yeah, trust me, Hannah, this poll's a lot more honest than the Jeff Gluck poll. I love Jeff Gluck. We know him. It's just like you said, the fans, they could be a bit biased towards certain things on that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. All right, let me pull it up really quick.
Also, this has turned into a giant meme section. Just warning you now. So people literally just put Wikipedia pages on half the comments. It's amazing.
Yeah, I put lyrics to a particular song me and him were singing over the weekend.
God.
Oh yeah.
That literally became We'll get into that one.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, cool. So here's the poll. Yep. So the Iceberg. What did you think of the 2019 Ford EcoBoost 400? 4.3 thousand votes. And Jarrett was like complaining before the show, it's a bit down this weekend. It was only like 200 down, Jarrett. It's fine. So people still voted. It's all good. So 9% thought it was great. 15% thought it was good. So that's a net positive of 24%. And as for the other three, average wins this week, 45% thought it was just another typical average NASCAR race, and 19%, including myself, thought the race was below average, and 12% thought it was bad. That's up a bit from last week, isn't it?
The bad is the same as last week, but it surprises me that the net negative was worse than last week, because I was not a fan of last week's race, and I thought even though this Homestead race is probably not the best in a while, it still was decent.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. Just below average.
I know a lot of people in the comments had complained that the big part is that NBC, they said, had shown only like the front four guys. They hadn't shown like really anybody else. So I guess might be part of it.
I mean, those are the most relevant though. Like, I mean, I feel like people would complain if you're not showing them all the time. It's like,
didn't NBC do a separate broadcast of the Championship 4? So there was the regular broadcast and then there was Championship 4?
Yeah,
yep.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, they did that, I think, on NBC Sports, and then on the main NBC they had the race. But I have to admit, I'm surprised by how, I'm surprised the net negative outweighed the net positive this past week.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm looking through here, and looking at some of the previous races, I mean, it's still ahead of, like, for instance, Pocono. It's ahead of that one. It's still ahead of, like, like Texas, stuff like that. But I'd say for the most part it's relatively even, which I'm not surprised with, especially since the average is so high. Because these two 45% are the highest average vote since the Richmond fall race. So I get that.
I feel like for the most part this season, that's where fans have basically lied at. They basically just thought, oh, the race was either, mostly average or below average. But you're going to have some fans who always think races are great. You're going to have some fans who think every race is just terrible. And that varies depending on like the winner or, how they won or how the race was ran or if it was like, ran on time or if it even finished too. So a lot of factors go into this. So now let's go into the comments here. This is my favorite part. Yeah, this is my favorite part here. Oh, I'm top comment. So yeah, let's see. Beans, greens, tomato or potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, rams, hogs, moss, chicken, turkeys. Yeah, it's that Thanksgiving song, by the way, Hannah. So like we were playing that with Thanksgiving coming up. We were like cruising to that sometimes on the way to the track, and we were just like blurting it out. We got to make a TikTok with that, Jared.
Oh, we totally are.
Jared was talking about getting on TikTok, so if you want to make a TikTok, let me know.
Someone had to explain to me what TikTok was over the weekend, so you guys are much farther ahead of me. Yeah.
No, Deegan explained it to us like when she was on the podcast last week, and she was like, "Get on it." I'm like,
so I jumped on last week, and all of a sudden, like I get home, I'm like the only one up or whatever, so I just sit on the couch. I'm like going through them and stuff. Next thing I know, I look because I sat down at like 9, and it's like midnight, 1 o'clock. I'm like, oh my god, where did my night go? Like it is so addicting to watch.
Yeah, it's very addicting. Cito, let's see. What if Denny Hamlin hadn't wrecked at Texas? What if Denny Hamlin's crew members hadn't screwed up in the final pit stop in Miami? What if, in 2019, Denny Hamlin captured his missing ring? Kudos to him for watching the Missing Ring series on Jared's channel. Let's see. Good thing you guys were there so you didn't have to listen to the horrible NBC broadcast. Someone needs to remind Rick Allen that there are more than just 4 drivers on the track in the last race of the season. How's that his fault, though? He's not working the cameras. Come on.
Yeah, they always go after the person who's talking on screen.
Yeah, like they went after Vince Welch for FS1's mishap in the truck race in Martinsville. It's like, what?
Because somehow that's his fault.
Come on, guys. It's not their fault. Come on,
dude,
man.
you can never win. And just take this from me, you can never win.
Yeah. No, we know. Oh, trust me, we know. Yeah.
Because if they don't rip on you, they'll meme you.
Yeah, they'll meme us, and I've been memed plenty of times. So is Jared too, but some more than others. All right, so let's see. Congrats to Kyle Busch on winning his second title. He executed everything perfectly and came out on top, while the other 3 had problems. Yeah, we alluded to that during the first half of the show. Let's see. 18, this package sucks, wins title. 11, NASCAR bus grill tape. And then 4, Keelan went 4 out of 5 on tire pressure. And then 19, turn right to go left, and Custer. And championship season, Denny Hamlin 2020.
I love seeing how many people like put like how it's the end of the world because Kyle Busch won. It's so funny looking at some of these.
Carnation Clippit says, I'm assuming he meant to say Crafton, not
Matt
Crafton. Yeah. But, like, they also mean the hell out of people's names, too. I wouldn't be surprised if this was done deliberately, too. So, yeah, Matt Crafton wins with 0 wins. Bro moment. Yeah.
I love that someone put the Sweet Victory lyrics in. Good job.
Dude. That whole, we'll get into it later, but, like, that whole lead up by NBC, like the whole promotion thing, that was so good. And I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the playoffs, but like I was like super hyped.
Oh, same here. I'm not a fan of really at all of the playoffs, and I absolutely was so pumped watching that. Granted, it's also probably because I watched SpongeBob before I left that day, but either way.
Yeah. You want me to read some more comments or just scroll all the way down to the Oh, wait, hold up. Blue Jimmy 48 fan. Good thing Core is finally here, so I can forget this horrendous season. Yeah, Blue Jimmy.
See, I thought this year was better than last year, to be honest, because I think we had good racing throughout the season compared to last year where it was like cut in half.
Yeah, the second half of last year had a lot more better races. This year was way more consistent when it comes to that. But, I mean, also Blue Jimmy fan, obviously Jimmie Johnson fan, so didn't make the playoffs this year. So, yeah, he's obviously not a huge fan of this season. So
who got last?
Let's scroll down all the way to who got last.
I see somebody put in the Chick-fil-A menu. So.
Yes, and that reminds me, I do need to get a chicken sandwich, too. My roommate was reminding me of that. He's like, we need to go to Popeyes. Let's see.
How many people left him this week? Jeez.
Oh, I don't know. But, here's the 2011 format, but with 2016 points rule. So, under that format, according to Chrome Diesel, Truex would have won by 18 points. So, that's good to know. Let's see. Scroll down to the last comment. I think since this is the last poll of the season, everyone just decided to go all out and just comment on it. Okay, hold up. Scroll back up. Holy crap, he did it again.
What is
Patriotic
Pioneer.
That's like the
Jesus
fifth one in
Christ.
a row, I think.
I think he's won 4 of them in a row, yeah. So thank you guys again for voting on the poll, leaving your comments, some greater than others. It's been a great year. I can't wait for next year. Maybe we can hit 5,000 with the Daytona 500 though.
I need to think of some sort of poll. Not yours, but I don't know, something else. Like something that involves flags. If it was good, green flag. If it was bad,
go for it, man.
Like that.
Yeah, go for it.
Something like that.
I want to bring this up because I was looking at some of these stats over the week about Kyle Busch and like just how good he's been. So Kyle Busch, of course, won the championship, second championship, not only of his career but also of this decade. His average finish was an 8.9, I think they said, which was the highest average finish of a champion since 2000. Coincidentally, when the last time, aside from his 2015 victory, the 18 car and the
Bobby
driver
Labonte.
that was the champion, Bobby Labonte. He's also the winningest driver of the 2010s. And that's also with missing half a season in 2015.
And also, don't forget, he had 27 top 10s this season. That is insane. That is the most since Jeff Gordon in 07.
Yeah, I mean, he would have won under the full season format this one. So I guess I want to, pass this question here. Where does Kyle Busch at this point in his career rank with the all-time greats now that we have another full season done? Just in Cup at least.
Go ahead, Hannah. You can go first.
That's a good question. We were talking about like the Hall of Fame aspect the other day, just between a bunch of us, and like what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame. And like Crafton got brought up of like, is he a Hall of Fame driver? And half of us were like, oh no, he's not. And the other half were like, yeah, he's got a couple championships, but like you look at his wins, he only has 14 wins in his career. Then you're like, dude, you look at Kyle Busch and what he's accomplished. I mean, it's kind of one of those things, but you compare the good old boys to like Kyle, and I don't think you look at Kyle as like a good old boy by any
Just a
means.
grouchy boy.
Just yes.
A grouchy boy, I like that one.
How many times post race we've all looked at each other walking to the grid and done nose goes. Like, all right, who's interviewing? Last one to touch their nose. Cause
I bet.
it's just Russian roulette. You never know what you're gonna get. So, but all that aside, his remarks, his attitude, whatever, like just straight statistics. I mean, he's the best one out there right now, hands down. Hands down. I mean, you just can't, no matter what, almost every weekend, he's a threat. Even if he's 10th on the charts, 10th in qualifying, like, he's just a threat. And he's got a good team underneath him, which I think is funny because you guys were obviously there. But, like, when that whole deal with Truex happened, people were, like, tweeting at, the team and was like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe you do that. And Sherry was tweeting, like, he's very calm on the radio. He would never MF his team on the radio. And I feel like that was low-key like an at Kyle Busch. So I just tagged him. Because how many times does like one thing go wrong and he just blasts his team? But, I mean, I guess that wasn't the question. All things aside, statistically, I mean, Kyle's the best one of our generation right now, hands down. And he probably will be for a while. Jimmie Johnson's out. There's no longer an Earnhardt. Like, realistically, Harvick's probably the next one out after this, and then you start looking at the young guns, and Kyle's probably going to be around another 10 years, and it's going to take a while before one of these other kids can catch up.
Well, and really quick, I want to thank these guys. Jake Baskinger, a friend of ours, favorite NASCAR season, 15 and 19. He's a big Kyle Busch fan. Carl Singleton says, Kyle Busch is the Steph Curry of NASCAR. Blue Jimmy 48 fan also says that, I haven't stopped crying all day. Big Jimmie Johnson fan, so I can understand. But, yeah, I mean, you look at where he is on the all-time win list right now, and I believe he has sole possession of 9th all-time.
He passed Lee Petty, too.
56 wins, which means he's 20 away from the next guy, which is Dale Earnhardt. And realistically, he's around for 10 more years. He needs 2 wins a year to tie Dale Earnhardt, which I remind my grandpa of, and he was none too pleased about that. He's like, I know, I saw. But God, I mean, it's like you don't have to like his personality that he portrays to the world. There's a lot of things you can gripe with about Kyle Busch, but talent is not one of them, and the stats right now are not one of them. I like to look at just strictly for him, at least the Cup Series. We can look at the 200 plus wins and stuff. Like he's gonna be a Hall of Famer, first ballot, no doubt about it. Like I think now it's not the question of if he's an all-time great, is where you put him on the list now. He has now multiple championships, which is an incredibly hard thing to do under any system ever. I mean, you look back and how many multi-time champions are there. I think it's like less than half of NASCAR champions have won more than one. You look at the wins. He's ahead of guys like Rusty Wallace, Lee Petty, Tony Stewart. He's catching up to Dale Earnhardt. He's going to probably be around that Jimmie Johnson, Bobby Allison, Cale Yarborough area by the time he retires. Like, I think realistically, when you look at the entire picture of his career when he retires, he could realistically be in that top 4 or 5, which is incredible to say. But I mean, I think it's true.
Oh yeah, no doubt. If we're just talking the Cup Series right now, top 10 all-time great right now as it stands after the season. If we're looking at NASCAR as a whole, I'd put him in the top 5 all-time right now, just because of his body of work in all of NASCAR and in the top 3 series. I mean, that's 3 different setups, 3 different teams, crew chiefs, and and different ways to drive the certain cars and certain packages that he has to deal with, and he still comes out on top not every single time, but usually
a majority.
Majority of the time he always does.
I mean, you kind of just have to ask yourself at this point, what people can you put over him? I'd say personally, I'd put guys like Petty, Pearson, Earnhardt, Gordon.
Are we talking about just Cup Series right now?
Just Cup Series. I mean, if we're gonna do all time, then there's a whole another bag of worms.
No, Cup Series. Well, yeah. Richard Petty, David Pearson. Let's see, Jeff Gordon right now, Jimmie Johnson, Dale Earnhardt, Cale Yarborough.
But here's the thing: he's in the conversation, which I don't think could be said. I don't think would be said 2 or 3 years ago.
And also, I think another thing that's in his favor, he's the first to win twice in this playoff format. Which, I mean, we've been talking about this all year. I mean, 2014, up from 2014 to 2018, there was different champions. I mean, the championship was just getting passed around. So we thought that with this format, it was going to be really tough for somebody to be a multiple-time champion in this format. And 2015 to 2019, in a 5-year span, he's won 2. So I feel like the Kyle Busch dynasty is going to be in full effect beginning next year. I'm not going to say he's going to win the title next year per se, but within the next 5 years, he's the favorite heading into next season. And within the next 5 years, I can see him winning another 2 championships. And if you compare that with everyone else, everyone else just has 1 and then he has multiple. I would have to consider that a dynasty under this format, even though they're so spread apart, because some people won't consider it a dynasty unless they were won, back-to-back years, or I don't know, within a 3 or 4 year period, if they're closely together. But in this format, though, I think there's a bit of an exception, just because it's just so much harder to win another championship, just because it's so circumstantial now these days. You can't just coast on through the season, like you used to in the 90s.
Even in the 400. I mean, even in the chase format through, I'd even say 2013, if you got a big enough lead, you can go in there and basically, yeah. So I think it makes it incredibly more difficult.
Yeah, it's way more difficult to win under this format. So, Kyle Busch, top 10 right now. We're going to talk about NASCAR as a whole, top 5. Easy. No problem.
And then I'd say another big story and about another all-time great we can talk about that came out today. And I see a lot of people in the chat. I'm just looking down at the chat and seeing people in mourning today.
Yeah, and also in mourning too.
Jimmie Johnson has announced that 2020 is going to be his last season. I guess I can pass a few questions here to you. Are you surprised? How do you think his 2020 will be, and what's his legacy?
I was shocked. I was so shocked. So I was just sitting on the couch, just watching TV. I was eating my oatmeal. I was talking with my girl, and then my mom texted me, and she's like, "Why didn't you tell me this, Darian? You're usually on top of this stuff." And I'm like, then it says Jimmie Johnson's retiring, and I go immediately on Twitter, and then it says, "Oh, tweeted 5 minutes ago, Johnson's calling it quits." And I'm like, "What?" Because I mean, he talked about this on the Dale Jr. download. He was gonna stay, he wasn't ready to hang it up yet, but evidently he is after next year for sure. I figured he would race all the way through 2021 with the whole Allied Bank sponsorship being good up until 2024. But we have to remember that's just a Hendrick deal. It's not necessarily a Jimmie Johnson deal. So they could swap it with whatever team they want. But I'm assuming their long-term plans with that deal are going to be with the 48. But, I mean, that's just right now. We'll see. But Jimmie Johnson retiring, though, it's just another childhood idol is basically gone. And I don't know, I was just ranting on to my girlfriend and her friend for about 10 minutes. They don't watch NASCAR, but I was just ranting on like, oh, he's a 7-time champion. He's leaving. Like he has to have a good season next year. And then they were just like, oh, well, one of them was like, babe, he has a life. Chill. Like, he's supposed to spend time with his kid. I was just like, yeah, but still, like, he's retired. But yeah, Jimmie Johnson, first ballot Hall of Famer, no question. Definitely one of the all-time greats. One of the GOATs, really. I mean, you think about GOATs, he's definitely in the conversation, obviously, with the 7 championships. And next year's his final year to chase that 8th title. I know I joke about him a lot too recently with like, the whole, with the recent failures and bad seasons for the past 2 years. But I mean, compared to some other greats, like this fall off wasn't as bad. I mean, if you look at Richard Petty, like he just sunk straight to the ground towards the end of his career with injuries and, a lot of failures towards the end. Missing races, that sort of thing. And Johnson, like, he's sort of fallen, but not that much. I mean, the playoff streak ended at 15 years. So I'd say, he wants to, go out on his own terms, like kind of like Dale Jr. did. At the end of the day, what else does he have to prove? He has nothing else really to go for except, like, to win that 8th, Cup Series championship, which will be next year. Congrats on a great career, man. I mean, 7 championships, 83 wins, and over 17,000 laps led, all within a 20-year period. He's raced 18 years up to this point. So that's incredible.
I mean, I'm just going to like further what you said there. I think this is the beginning of a new era almost with him retiring. Like he was the last one that kind of fell in with like the Earnhardt, the Kenseth, the Casey Kane, like that group. He was kind of the last like remaining mass NASCAR fan base over there. So to see him go, bookmarks the question of who's going to be in the 48 next year. But that's a big name to see go. And you had so many people that came out and they were like, oh, Dale Earnhardt's leaving. I'm done with NASCAR. You know what I mean? And so, like, with that being said, how does that affect NASCAR's fan base? But honestly, I think him not making the playoffs this year was a huge, like, all right, bud. You know what I mean? It's maybe – I don't even think it's necessarily his time. I think Hendrick this year just had a terrible year. Yeah. Like, Chase had an okay year, but Hendrick as a organization had a terrible 2019 season, and that sure doesn't help when you're, multiple-time champion, the great Jimmie Johnson does not make the playoffs. Yeah. But Alex and did Byron
Yeah, 3 out of the 4 made it. Yes.
Right, and it not being Jimmie Johnson that doesn't make like. Sorry, but when you're that guy, that's a pretty big blow to your confidence. So I think you guys hit it there with like him wanting to call it on his own terms. He was like, all right, I didn't make it. At that point, I hit the bottom of the bottom, having not won, not made it. I'm going to enjoy the last year, ride out the sponsorship aspect of it, enjoy it, kind of how Dale did in his last year. Go out, try and chase the win. And I think that like we'll see him be a lot more aggressive next year, because he's kind of like got nothing to lose. Like he's going to quit points racing. He's just going to be like trying to get wins because that's what he's going to go out with. You know what I mean? But yeah, it'll be interesting. I am interested to see how 2021 looks with Jimmie Johnson not there. Who's going to fill the Hendrick? Hendrick is going to have the youngest, well, depending on who they put in the 48, but the youngest top tier driver lineup. Like look at Gibbs. Look at everyone else. Hendrick has a bunch of young kids in there right now.
Average age is within the 20s, like 25,
like
around there. Like,
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And also, one last thing I wanted to add too, and like, and Jimmie Johnson retiring too, he also sort of preserves his legacy in a sense. So like, you'll see multiple-time champions in any sort of sport, like, they're way past their prime. They want to stick around. They want to try and hang it out. They want to see if they can come back. And in the process, like fans are just like, oh man, like I don't want to see him like performing like this and that sort of thing. And like for example, Terry Labonte, 2-time champion. He was originally supposed to retire after 06, but then he kept racing on and on. So like a younger generation of fans only knew him as like one of these, back of the pack drivers towards the very end of his career. And then if they look more into it, they're like, oh, he was a champion, that sort of thing. So Jimmie Johnson retiring now, he definitely takes a book he definitely takes a page out of Jeff Gordon's book, because that's exactly what Jeff Gordon decided to do. There was really no fall off towards the end of his career, so we're always going to remember him like, oh, he brought it, every single week. And with Johnson, he had these 2 bad seasons, but still, I mean, the good outweighs the bad, because there was just so many, memorable moments and favorable moments. And hi Dougie, hi Janet. But yeah, there was just so many moments where obviously 7 championships, 83 wins, so he's going to be remembered for his success more than his failures towards the end.
That is a cute dog.
Yeah, that is.
She was like pulling on my shoe and my ankle, and I was like, all right, well maybe I'll let her up here. And now
how old is she?
5 months.
Oh my gosh, she's so cute. Yeah, I like it.
You guys have like dog bars where you're from?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, so we went to a dog bar tonight because it's been super cold and rainy here the last couple days. And so, well, it was cold yesterday and I worked all day today. So I took her to a dog bar tonight and she is like cashed out. She spent the last 2 hours playing. So she's like, is it time for bed yet? And it's only 8:45.
Yeah, my dogs, I couldn't take my dogs to a dog bar. It would fight the other ones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can't do it.
She thinks she's a 90-pound rot, but she's a 25-pound Australian Shepherd.
Oh, yeah, my other one. Yeah, one of my dogs thinks that too.
My dog, Gus, is like a 100-pound golden doodle, and he's scared of small dogs for the most part. Like the first time we introduced him to a small dog, he literally climbed over my dad over a chair trying to run away.
Oh, is he high-strung?
No, he's pretty old. He's like gonna hit 13 this January, so he's sort of,
he's hella old.
He's hit like that old man stage where he'll just like go right through you if you're standing in the way of like the door or something, or if he wants to eat, he'll just walk right through you. But I mean, he still has a lot of energy and stuff. Like when people come over. And then there's Coco, little Chewini, who again thinks she's a 90-pound rat, and until the dog barks back, then suddenly she hides behind Gus.
Yeah, then she's scared. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as for Jimmie, man, I'm torn because like through the early years of me watching, I was so sick of Jimmie Johnson winning all the time that I didn't appreciate just how good he was. Like, I think there was that one span in 2007 where he won like 4 in a row, and that's what got him over Jeff Gordon at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, just how good he was in comparison to the rest of the field, and probably arguably the most competitive time in the sport, where the cars were the most equal, the drivers were arguably at one of the highest levels of talent ever. And then like, so sort of towards the end of his career, these last 5 or 6 years, it's like I've started to appreciate him more. And now that he's not winning, I want to see him win more, and I want to see him race more. And I have to admit, like you guys were saying, it's an end of an era. It almost feels like that's like sort of, because Harvick and Kurt Busch used to race, back when I started watching, and Kyle Busch and Hamlin, but they've sort of been separate from that group of Junior, Gordon, Smoke, Johnson now.
Yeah, Kurt Busch during that era, like that's when he hit his peak, and then Harvick didn't reach his peak until about the late 2010s.
But it kind of feels like that last little tether to the past is being cut. Because it's like Johnson is the only driver who is still in the same ride that he was in when I first started watching, like the first race I ever watched.
Oh yeah, no, he's the only one. Yeah, he's the only one.
So, that kind of longevity in the sport, it's something that's like, I appreciate it now. I'm just glad that going into 2020, I'm assuming most people will be more appreciative of it. And I honestly think he'll do better next year than he did this year. I think this is the bottom of the barrel. I think
he'll make the playoffs.
I think he will, and I think he'll get a win or two. Like, I think that Hendrick is going to have a bounce back year. I think all 4, more than likely, at least from at this point, all 4 probably will make the playoffs. And I think Johnson, I don't think he'll be a top contender, but I could see him being like sort of a top 15, top 10 driver again. Which
I could see that. I mean, it's not hard to make the playoffs really in this. I mean, just having to have a very average season, and then boom, you're like the 15th or 16th seed inside the playoffs. So I mean, it was hard for him this year, but I mean, he had a lot of mishaps, and I don't know, had the most oddest crew chief change I've ever seen too. After he has one of his best runs at Pocono, they make the switch, and he was inside the points at the time. And then soon after that, he just fell off a cliff. So got to manage his team a lot better, and hopefully they get some better key personnel around him. Just because when they ended that whole Chad Knaus era, like I figured there was going to be some problems and there was going to be like another learning curve with a new crew chief, but it didn't help that they had to change it, 21 races in. So that didn't help very much either, but hopefully I wish them the best in that season. And really quick, we have 155 watching, only 54 likes. Lick the like button, y'all.
Yeah, lick that like button, y'all. I'd say, I guess this is the last really story about 2019 and sort of like, I guess 2020 in a way, but I guess we can get into the lightning round and then we can head off into the 2020 stories. So, Darian, do your thing.
Go. And now we have the lightning round of the NASCAR Weekly Podcast. Jarrett, do your thing, boy.
All right, so this week there's actually a lot of them on here. So it was announced that Dale Jr. is going to wave the green flag for the 2020 Daytona 500, which means that all he has left to do to fit every role that happens before the race is sing the national anthem. If you've heard anything of his singing, you don't want to hear it.
I do. That's going to be hilarious.
Also, you need to check out Slapshoe's video on the 1992 Hooters 500. Awesome video. Plus, how many NASCAR YouTubers get sponsorship deals with the Atlanta Motor Speedway? Come on.
A racetrack. A whole ass racetrack sponsor.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Also, thank you, Carl, for your $2 super chat. The Truck Series is now going to be named the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series. I can't wait till they go to Gateway. Cannot wait.
Why? Just
Did you guys watch any of the races from Gateway this year?
They were.
I just want to hear when they're like, "Welcome to the Worldwide Technologies, blah 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 Gateway for the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series."
I was gonna ask if this is an appropriate time to ask for a raise because I have to fit that much more of a word count now in my broadcast. Because literally, I think the K&N race that was there was the something. It was the Napa Auto Parts Enos 150 presented by something else at Worldwide Technologies Raceway Gateway presented by Big Machine Vodka. That was literally how we had to open up every single segment.
So basically, it was the something at something 500 presented by at something. Wow,
it's insane.
That's crazy.
I do not envy that.
They just keep tacking it on, and especially with like NASCAR's premier sponsorship deal that they're doing this next year, where they're gonna like tier it in and how it's gonna be presented by and segment out. Oh my gosh! For the sake of the media, it is going to be bonkers next year when we start going to races and like it's gonna be the NASCAR Cup Series presented by Geico in affiliation with Monster Energy.
That's how they're gonna do it.
Speedway, the Ford EcoBoost 400 in affiliation with Big Machine. That's seriously how it's going to be sponsored next year. Like that's how they're gonna format it, and
that's crazy.
We're all gonna lose our jobs, and they're gonna hire auctioneers. I'm just convinced.
That's crazy.
I was just thinking the only thing I can think of that compares to that is like the old NASCAR on Fox when they'd come back and Chris Myers would be, today it was presented by this one.
Promotional consideration provided by, and then they
like
have a list.
Yeah.
They would just have the list. It's like, no, Chris, you don't have to say it. But now in today's media, you have to say everything. And if you miss a word, you're fired.
Yeah, because I'm looking here, and the next thing on the lightning round was that Cup would be known simply as the NASCAR Cup Series, but unfortunately for you guys, it's not going to be that simple.
Yeah, it's not going to be that simple.
That sucks.
Yeah, it was crazy, though. I guess Monster came back. I mean, I'm sure you guys know this. Monster came back and wanted to be the premier sponsor for the same amount of money that they currently. And
NASCAR was like, nah.
Yeah, they said, no, you can become one of our tier sponsors, and they were like, no, we're all or nothing. So like they're not even a tier sponsor next year.
It's a big risk. I know they want to try this new business model, but I would understand if they signed Monster Energy back on just for that guaranteed income. But I have to applaud NASCAR. They're going to take a risk here with this business model and see what happens.
32 team is disconnected. Wonderful. We'll just keep going.
You're lagging just a little bit, but I think you're good. Hold on, turn your camera off really quick.
Yeah, I'll do that. It's just one of those deals.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, do it again.
All right,
sorry, this happens from time to time.
And
it's okay. It's okay. I'm surprised
it's happened from time to time this year, and we're just like, oh.
Unfortunately,
we're back on.
Yeah, we are. And someone put welcome to FS1. Unfortunately, our college internet is not the greatest here. But yeah, since we're back
Where do you
on.
call?
Oh, sorry, I'm glitching out. What'd you say?
Where do you go to college?
NIU, Northern Illinois.
Oh, okay.
They're not the greatest.
I go to UNLV, but I live in the off-campus apartment, so the internet's on point here with the LAN cable. Of
You're a
course.
Las Vegas boy?
Yeah, I'm from Vegas. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, North Las Vegas.
All right, so yeah, I can see that we're back.
There we go.
So I guess we can go on to the next subject here. On the lightning round, the 2010s. There's a few interesting stats about the 2010s that I think, for the most part, I guess you could say is good depending on how you view it. The other one is good no matter who you are and how you view NASCAR. So the first one is that the 2010s were the first full decade with no repeat champion. I think a lot has to do with this format, especially if the 14 to 16.
That's like good because of the parity, but then it's also bad because I don't know. There's like no dynasties. Like, I mean, the championships is just getting passed around. It's sort of like the heavyweight title was, like, you know, in the early to mid 2000s. It was just getting, you know, passed around, and then eventually people stopped, you know, started to lose interest in it. Like, people hate dynasties in the moment, but then when they look back on it 10 or 20 years from now, they're like, man, that was like an awesome team or an awesome driver or an awesome athlete.
Yeah. And then the other stat is the 2010s are the first decade in NASCAR history among any of the top 3 series with no driver fatalities.
That's good. Yes. Yeah, that's something you like to see. So NASCAR with that W.
Also, let's see. Also, wishing a happy retirement to David Reagan and Paul Menard.
Yes.
That's something that sort of, I guess, flew under the radar. I like that David Reagan had that retired hat on.
Yeah,
before
as soon
the
as
race.
the race is over. Yeah, before. I think he also had it on after the race too. Like, yeah, I'm done.
Oh yeah, and then shout out to NBC and NASCAR for their awesome marketing with the Sweet Victory commercial. Honestly,
Yes.
It's probably my favorite commercial for Homestead ever.
Yeah, that or easily top 5 favorite NASCAR commercial ever, or NASCAR championship promotion. Like, I remember when we first watched that, like, Jarrett was just going nuts about it, and then he showed me, and I was like, wow, that was amazing.
Also, Gresham Motorsports Park is set to return and host super late model races in May of 2020. So,
Nice. Yeah, I knew she'd be happy about that.
Did you guys also see, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Tri-County Motor Speedway out here in North Carolina also was like for the last couple of years, it's hosted like one race a year, but then last year it got completely shut down and hasn't raced in 2 years. And they just put on their Facebook today, Tri-County Motor Speedway under new ownership will be back in 2020. So that's another short track that's being added to 2020 out here on the East Coast.
Why only one race though? Is it like some big event or no?
However, like the ordinance worked out or something like that, that someone, like the city owned it, I think. And so they only got the funding and the ordinance to run the one race a year, because otherwise they had to, you know, come up with like insurance and to keep it open. And like when it was Cars Tour that ran there, so when Cars Tour came in, they literally brought in their own people to run the whole facility. Janet, please stop. And so yeah, Tri-County's coming back next year, and it's like are you guys familiar with like Concord and how Concord is shaped?
Yeah.
No, well, I'm not. No.
It's kind of like triangular. It's a really cool racetrack, and so it'll be awesome to have both like Gresham and Tri-County on next year, especially because Concord got bought, and Concord is no longer in. It's going to be tore down, I think, for storage units or something.
Oh yeah, the bull ring. Yeah, the facilities at LVMS. I interned out there, by the way. They rented out like most of the old parking spaces out at the bull ring for storage units. I mean, it brings in money. It's guaranteed revenue. I understand that, and also, I don't know. In today's day and age, like the bull ring's not going to sell out unless you have like a truck or Xfinity race there. I mean, like its highest capacity is like 8,000, and on average gets like 5,000 a year like, per race. So yeah, not really a big deal. But then for some of these other tracks who, you know, don't have other sources of income, like a Las Vegas Motor Speedway under the whole SMI umbrella of tracks, you got to find out, you know, got to look at different ideas and different ways to get revenue.
So I'm wondering. Oh, She goes after the dog. I guess we finished the one last subject really quick about the lightning round. The core league, we're back. So
yes, the core league is back.
Right.
If you if you don't know what that is, that's basically you have NASCAR Heat Pro League. Us YouTubers, we have the core league. So basically, all your favorite YouTubers during the off season, we race, and it's back this weekend. So that's good to hear, and that's going to be a lot of planning.
No, I don't think we'll repeat Michigan.
Oh, we're not going to repeat Michigan, and we're having dog problems still. Still having some dog.
No.
Animals and poor college internet are the number one nemesis. But Darian, do your thing.
She never eats magazines, but today she has decided to shred all of the magazines.
Needs the spotlight.
yeah, she's talking about the spotlight. Come on now.
So Darian, that was the lightning round. Do your thing.
And that was the lightning round on the
Wait.
NASCAR. Oh, go ahead.
No. I want to touch on one of the things that you lightning round really fast.
All right.
Yeah, go
You
ahead.
mentioned your guys' core group, right, thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you guys are like obviously familiar with like the pro league, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you guys see on Twitter today that they shut down the Charlotte branch of like 704 games and stuff and laid everyone off?
I saw somebody
What?
put that in the chat, but I didn't believe them because I thought they were
What?
trolling.
What? No way.
So I just saw it. Hold up, stand by. So I was on Twitter earlier and I saw someone like tweet something vaguely about that. And you guys know Zane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zane had put up this big long thing about like it was a screenshot of something, and he pretty much put like the company that I moved from Texas to Charlotte earlier this year has officially shut down, and the Charlotte team was laid off this morning. The game is still being developed by Wilson and his talented team. You know, it's pretty much that was the 704 games group in Charlotte, but they completely shut the Charlotte branch down. So that makes me wonder what is the future of the NASCAR Heat Pro League.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
Magazine.
Well, first off, I'm sorry to everyone who got laid off so suddenly. Like, you're going into work not knowing. I mean, just like, hey, another day at the office, and then you get laid off like that. So I feel bad for them, but also, I just feel bad for like some of the fans too. Like, I don't know what the future is going to be for NASCAR gaming, like, because they just signed this 10-year deal with NASCAR last season to make
Yeah.
it.
I don't know how it's going to all pan out either. I mean, like, obviously, I don't want to say I wasn't very involved, but, like, I don't have a lot of, like, internal knowledge or anything like that because I was on the NASCAR production side of it,
Yeah.
where I was brought in. And
Well-
so that was between NASCAR productions and 704 games. And, I mean, when we left that finale that we did, the production aspect of it, we had a lot of happy people. Like, everyone was excited and, like, tons of good emails and phone calls. So for someone to make that like flip switch decision of like, just kidding, makes me wonder.
Yeah, because
Really?
even Steve Phelps, when we got to talk to him a bit on pit road this past weekend, and even he was talking about that with our friend Sloppy, like, you know, and just about like the pro league going forward and stuff. So it's like.
And
Wow.
also, Zane. I mean, Zane, like, we know him because he basically helped get this whole, a bunch of YouTubers together to help promote the game leading up to it. And everyone got it for free. Everyone was doing their thing too, and everybody got something in the end. But now he's just laid off now. Like, that's crazy. So, like, their Charlotte branch is down, but I'm assuming that's the main branch of 704 games. I mean, NASCAR is located in Charlotte. I understand they have some offices out in Florida and maybe some in, somewhere else in the South, but wow, that's shocking. Like, I saw somebody put that in the chat. I'm like, oh, it's just trolling, like Jared just said. But man, so I don't know if like they're gonna keep. I mean, 704 games is just the publisher though, but if this all doesn't go according to plan, then I don't know, NASCAR, like, somebody has to look in, to another gaming company to produce the NASCAR games.
It makes me wonder,
Wow.
it makes me wonder with the push that iRacing got this year with NBC, they literally live broadcast them, and the pushback that just like the NASCAR community gave 704 games, unfortunately, you know what I mean? It was like, it makes me wonder if maybe there was conversation to take that route because so many more teams got involved with iRacing, and like the problem is people were comparing a sim to a video game.
Yeah,
Oh,
that I don't. Yeah, I don't understand
not
that. They've been doing that for years now. I don't get it. I have no idea what the deal is with that.
Well, and I see people in the chat putting like EA Sports should come back, and it's like let's and this is funny as hell coming from me. Like maybe not let the nostalgia goggles make
Give
that
2K a chance. I've been saying 2K. I know some fans don't like their NBA product, but I mean, it's a whole lot. It's like one of the best sports titles out there when it comes to NBA. Let them make a game and see what happens. Or Codemasters. They already make F1. So.
But I'm just kind of wondering, like with that contract, like does this completely basically void that one, or is there some way they can work around it with like other people? Like I don't know how that all works out. I guess it'd probably be something that would come out more and more as the story sort of progresses, but it's just one of those deals where it's like, that's also shocking.
Yeah, I'm worried for Sloppy too. I mean, Sloppy Joe, he's a good friend of ours, and I mean, he basically worked his ass off to get into that pro league last winter to be eligible for it. And then when he got drafted, it's one of the best moments I've ever seen live on his channel. Hopefully the pro league still stays around too, because although it had its flaws, like at the end of the day, it was still very productive, and I felt like it had a ton of potential towards the future of esports. If for people who don't compare a console game to a friggin' full-on simulator. So,
yeah.
I don't understand that. I never have, and I never will. But that's just me. But anyways, Zane, I hope you find another job, man. I just DM'd you too. I'm sorry to hear that. Damn, this just changed my mood now. Like I'm. Damn.
Sorry.
No, it's good. No. Yeah, this is big news. Like, it just happened all like so sudden. Holy crap.
But I guess we can go into a few things for like just coming into 2020, and I guess I want to talk about this one really quick because this one intrigued me the most. I don't know who said it. All I know is it was passed around and packets with a grain or an entire block of salt. But the rumor is that they may end the 2021 schedule in like the middle of September next year.
And remember, you brought this up for the podcast. Me and Radman laughed you out the building last year. I don't remember, but you brought it up, so it happened. So I got to give you your kudos. You were right about that. So good job.
I'm just thinking, I know you can cut the 2 bye weeks out when the Olympics are around. That gets you to the middle of October. But I mean, I had to think like, do you add a bunch more double headers, midweek races? Like I know they're going all out. There's gonna be new tracks too. So I guess I don't know. Again, if this rumor is even real, but how do they make it to that point? I guess.
You're talking about 2021, correct?
Yeah, that rumor I guess been passed around, and I've seen it more and more. Is that like they want to end it around September-ish?
So the reason I've been told that too, because we're already like obviously building schedules ish for 2020 from like a broadcast 2020 from a broadcast standpoint, and a big push for the reason of ending it in September is think about all of the like they're still entertaining the idea of passing around championship venues.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how many of NASCAR's venues we wouldn't be able to have a championship race in November. Like most of them. And so they're entertaining the aspect of having it in early September because that opens up about 70% more venues to be able to entertain that championship race. But then also like we have the longest and most grueling travel schedule of any sport. Like it is ridiculous. I mean, starting with Speed Week